Hi guys, Jangro here, and welcome back to this Valhelsia Enhanced Vanilla Episode 3. We're going to go through more ways to get XP, and particularly we're going to take a look at this mob crusher and set up this for all the different farm animals. And this is going to be great for getting XP, so stay tuned for that. Before we get started on that though, let's take a look at how we got here and what we've been doing in the meantime to mine a bunch of XP. You can see that our levels are pretty high. We've got to mining 14. Been above ground looking for coal, finding lots of coal in places like this where a meteorite has broken out the land, but there's also lots of copper and iron. We've also been getting XP from some animal breeding and some early game tricks like putting a bale of hay under some chickens, and eggs on top of a bale of hay will not despawn, but they'll hatch into chickens, just like this. We're also collecting animals, and we're bringing all of them over to our breeding pens, where we are storing them to use later in the mob crusher. Now over here in these breeding pens, we've got feeding troughs, which are very easily made with 5 wooden slabs in this kind of in the crafting shape of a boat. And these you don't need farming level 5, so which they might change in the future, wouldn't surprise me. But you just take their favorite food and put it in the trough and they will just eat it. Same way as if you fed them by hand. Some carrots for the pigs. And we'll give the cows some wheat. And there they go. They breed, make a baby, you get the XP. And don't forget, we are cutting trees and trading sticks with these 2 Fletchers as much as we possibly can. This is some amazing early XP. And finally, we head down into the ground because we need iron to do our build. We need some hoppers. And we even dare to get down into the caves a little bit, and we find some redstone, which is also helpful for this build, but not required, as we'll talk about. But I'm feeling a little scared down here. This is like, I feel like a thief. Because in hardcore, it is just too risky to hang out down here in the caves with only 3 health and leather armor. So we're going to get out of here. Head on over. How do we get around this guy? We'll get a little more redstone. Considering returning back to a waystone, but we don't have one set, or we could have just teleported out of here. And we find our first diamond, but alas, we cannot mine it. So we're going to have to come back for that. We do find our way back up, and let's check in on the animals. And you can see the chickens are multiplying. The pigs are eating their carrots and multiplying. So they're all set here for us to kill for XP and use in our mob crushers. All right, let's talk about how this mob crusher works. There are cows. This is a old vanilla cow breeder mob crusher. It's got because we're in Java, there's entity cramming, which means that more than 20 animals or mobs cannot exist in the same block or they die. So they're here, and they are bouncing because of this water right here, which makes them easy to feed. And it gets really loud. And we feed them, and we'll hear them start to die. They've all eaten. And we got a whole bunch more leather, and there was one's probably cooked, so 9 or 10 beef. And there we go. So we got all that XP, and we got all those materials from those guys. Here's the cool part. So that vanilla machine is easy, but what we have here is we need empty hands for this. What we have here are these crude storage units, which hold up to the crude ones. These are Tech Reborn storage units. And there are different levels, and these first levels are really cheap. You can make them with wood and paper, and they hold 2,048 items, single items each. So you can see here we've got leather in here. Everything drops through a hopper into this barrel and pushes out into these 2 storage units on the left and right. This is the end of the line for the leather, but the raw beef then gets pushed down into the furnace, which cook stuff gets pushed down into this storage unit. And what's great about this is that you can see how many there are of everything, what the situation is for the coal, which is pushing into this furnace. It's a really great solution. So we're going to set up 3 more of these. We'll set up the chicken one as kind of our instructional one, and then we'll just set up the 2 other ones quickly. So we need a bunch of these building blocks. We need 1 dispenser. We'll just bring all the furnaces, 1 hopper, 1 barrel, and we'll bring all the storage units. We need fence, a button, a water bucket, and a lever. Okay, so the base of this thing is 3 blocks by 5 blocks. And we leave a space in between so we can kind of walk up. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now building up here so we don't have to dig into the ground to put these other things in here. So now we need a spruce barrel right in this spot, right there. And the hopper goes into that. And then we build around these things. And a dispenser goes right here. And again, if you don't have a dispenser, that's not a deal breaker. What you have to do is just pour the water into that block right above the hopper where the dispenser would push the water into. It's just going to get noisy. That's really the only difference. Water in here. And the button on the dispenser. You can see that water goes inside the bottom spot. It's kind of hard to see with shaders. We need a fence right here so we don't fall in while we're feeding, because that would be bad. And that's it. We have our basic mob crusher. We'll just pretty it up a little bit first. Okay, so there's our basic mob crusher. We can decorate it like I did with this one. We'll pretty that up later. Okay, so this is going to be for our chickens, which means we have 3 different things that they drop: feathers, eggs, and chicken meat. So we need to put space for all of these storage units, and it's going to look like this. So the storage units, there's going to be 1 down here for the cooked eggs and 1 down here for the cooked chicken. And we need to put a furnace above each one and a storage unit above each one to collect the initial feathers, eggs, and chicken. Empty hands are useful opening up these things. Otherwise, it just puts stuff in. So this side, we're going to cook the eggs. So we put an egg in here and lock it so that even if we take them out, it's still storing eggs. But we'll put all eggs in here. So now we've got eggs in here, and now we're going to configure this for input on this side. Blue is in auto input because the barrel does not automatically push into here. And we set the output to automatic for output and auto output to push stuff into the furnace. And you can see it has now pushed 16 eggs, 1 stack of eggs into the furnace. We'll put some coal in here. And while that's cooking, it's to get our fried egg. After that, we'll configure that one. Over here, we want raw chicken meat. We need to lock it. Configure it the same way. Input, but auto input on the left side. And the output, orange. And you see the chicken went away. It's down in here. Put a coal in here. So now we've got our fried eggs. And we configure this one input, top, auto input. And now the eggs pull down into here. We want to make sure we lock it. So if we take out all the fried eggs, it will continue to display fried egg on here. Otherwise, it would just show as empty. Now this one here, we configure the input. And the chicken came down into here. So now we need to deal with, we have two more things here. We have coal and feathers. We want the coal storage thing to go right here in between these two so it can feed both of them with one storage unit. And we need to get the feathers down here. So I want to put the feathers in a storage unit that's right here. And to do that, we could run two more hoppers down. We couldn't do that because everything would flow down. So we need to put a storage unit right here with a feather, lock it to feathers. We can leave the feathers in here. The input, auto input on the top, and output, auto output on the bottom. Now, if we had an extra hopper, we could use a hopper here, but storage units are actually cheaper. So now we've got 5 feathers in there. Click with an empty hand and configure the top input, auto input. We actually don't need auto input because these push between each other. And now the output, we want it to come out the front, which is this one right here. And we'll lock it to a feather, even though that's not strictly necessary. And once we configure this one now for the back, which is this one, it is now pulling feathers out. So now when feathers fall into the hopper, they're not going to go into this barrel at all. They're going to go straight down out to the front. And now we need one more storage unit in the front to put the coal in it. And we want to, no input there. But what we want to do is configure the left and the right as outputs with auto output. And it's going to push the coal, and we forgot to lock it. So let's remove that. So we put the coal in, we lock it to coal, and then we configure the left and right with auto output, and it pushes the coal only into one side. So there's not a round robin kind of pushing that happens. So we just need to make sure that there's enough in it to feed both of these. And there you go. There's the most complicated of the mob farms. Now we just got to set up the other ones. Now the other two are exactly the same. They're simpler than the chicken. So we set up the platform, set up the hopper system, and then we'll get on to moving the animals over. Moving the animals is a slow process, back and forth, and you can't move fast when you're carrying animals. And one thing to watch out for is definitely that you will run out of food or hunger, and in hardcore mode, that is deadly. So watch that. And finally, we put the storage units in place. Okay, and there we go. We've got the sheep set up. There's just light gray sheep in there, so we only have to deal with light gray wool. If we had more than one color sheep, then the other color wools would not go in there. They would go into that barrel. We could reconfigure this and put the coal over here and get another storage unit for another color wool. We could do the same thing that we did for the feathers down the back. So we can get a couple more wool colors in here. Pork is just very easy. The only thing they drop is pork chops, so it's a very simple setup there. And we've seen our chicken. So now we just go and feed all these guys. Turn on their water. Babies are born. We get all their XP. Some of them die. It's the babies that are so noisy. Chickens are just not noisy. Feed the chickens. Get our XP. Pigs. There we go. And the sheep also eat. Until there's 20 of each in these new ones, we won't get any drops from them. Lots of beef coming through here. And that's just going to pile up. And we've already got 36 leather, which we can use to round out our armor. All right, and that's going to do it for this episode. We are going to be swimming in XP in no time at all. And all of these drops, lots of food, endless food, and we're going to be in great shape for leveling up even more. And finally, we're going to be able to get into some of the content mods like Tech Reborn and Applied Energistics. So what would you like to see? Drop a comment, let me know what you think, how this is going, and please subscribe and like the video. Helps the channel a lot. Appreciate you watching. See you next time.